Listen closely. What I'm about to say may sting a little because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most men believe women approach attraction with bold words or obvious flirting. They don't. Instead, they ask one quiet question that almost no older man notices, and missing it costs you connection, respect, and desire. This is why a woman can seem interested one moment and completely distant the next, leaving you confused, replaying conversations in your head at night. Before we go deeper, do yourself a favor. If you care about understanding women, improving your relationships, and protecting your self-respect as a man, subscribe to this channel and like this video now. You're not here for entertainment, you're here for clarity. Now, let me speak to you not as an influencer, but as a psychologist who has listened to thousands of women confess what they never say out loud to men. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women rarely hit on men the way men expect. Especially as men get older, they assume attraction is announced. It isn't. It's tested. When a woman is interested, she silently asks a question through her behavior, her timing, her tone. The question is not, do you like me? And it's not, are you confident? Those are surface-level ideas men cling to. The real question is far more psychological. Do you make me feel safe to be myself without losing your center? That's it. And most men fail right here. She might ask you something personal, not because she's curious, but because she's watching how you hold yourself while answering. She might challenge you lightly, tease you, or even momentarily pull away, not to reject you, but to see if your identity collapses without her approval. Older men often misread this. They explain too much. They defend. They try to impress. They chase clarity instead of projecting calm. From a woman's perspective, attraction isn't about your age or your looks in that moment. It's about whether your presence feels grounded. When you rush to prove yourself, she feels pressure. When you seek reassurance, she feels responsible for your emotional state. And desire cannot survive responsibility. This is why so many women say, I don't know, something just felt off. They don't mean you were rude. They mean you failed the unspoken test. And here's the part no one warns men about. This question is asked early, subtly, and only once. If you miss it, she doesn't argue with you. She simply closes the door quietly and walks away, often smiling while she does. Most men never realize the moment they lost her. What makes this even more dangerous is that women don't announce when they're asking this question. There is no warning light, no pause. It happens inside ordinary conversation, wrapped in small moments men dismiss as meaningless. A casual comment, a slightly personal question, a delay in reply, a change in tone. And right there, she's watching your nervous system, not your words. Older men often believe experience protects them. In reality, experience can harden blind spots. You've learned strategies that worked before, but female psychology doesn't reward repetition. It rewards presence. When she asks, so, what are you really looking for? She isn't asking for your plans. She's asking if you'll perform or remain steady. When she says, you seem very confident, she's not complimenting you. She's checking if your confidence is real or borrowed from validation. And here's where most men break. They answer too fast. They over-explain. They try to sound impressive, reasonable, or emotionally advanced. From her perspective, that doesn't feel secure. It feels rehearsed. A woman's nervous system is extremely sensitive to incongruence. She senses when a man is trying to be a version of himself instead of being one. Let me be very clear. This isn't manipulation on her part. It's instinct. Attraction is not logical. It's biological and emotional. Her body is asking, if I lean into this man, will I feel held or will I have to hold him? This is why she might momentarily withdraw after a good interaction. She's not playing games. She's letting your behavior answer the question without interference. Do you panic? Do you double text? Do you demand clarity? Or do you remain composed, engaged with your life, unchanged? Men who fail here think they were too nice, too honest, or too old. None of that is true. They were simply uncentered. A grounded man doesn't chase signals. He doesn't interrogate interest. He responds, not reacts. His life doesn't shrink or expand based on her attention. And paradoxically, that stability feels emotionally spacious to a woman. It gives her room to desire instead of evaluate. This is why women often feel more drawn to men who seem slightly detached but fully present, not cold, not distant, just internally anchored. Older men who understand this stop trying to win attraction and start allowing it. And when a woman feels that steadiness, the question she was asking quietly dissolves. She doesn't need to test anymore. She already has her answer. Most men never learn this. That's why they keep thinking women are confusing, when in reality, women are responding precisely to what men reveal under pressure. Here's the part that unsettles most men when they finally understand it. The question women ask isn't about romance at all. It's about emotional leadership, not dominance, not control, leadership of self. When a woman leans in slightly, asking about your past, your boundaries, your intentions, she's observing whether you remain internally regulated or subtly seek her approval. Older men often believe emotional openness is the answer. Openness matters, but without grounding, it becomes emotional leakage. When you overshare too soon, justify your past, or soften your edges to seem agreeable, you unknowingly tell her something critical. Your sense of worth is negotiable, and a woman cannot relax into desire when she feels she's negotiating a man's identity. This is why women sometimes say they want vulnerability, then lose attraction when they get it. They're not rejecting vulnerability, they're rejecting instability. True vulnerability is calm truth, not emotional bargaining. She may say something slightly provocative. You seem intense. You're different from what I expected. These are not criticisms, they are probes. She's seeing if you collapse inward, defend outward, or remain relaxed in yourself. Your reaction answers her faster than words ever could. Men who don't understand this often mistake composure for indifference. It's not. Composure is emotional safety. When you can hear uncertainty without chasing reassurance, when you can hold silence without filling it, when you can accept her curiosity without performing, she feels something rare. She feels permission to soften. Attraction deepens not when you convince her, but when you don't interrupt her internal process. This is why forcing clarity too early kills momentum. You're not being direct, you're being anxious, and anxiety communicates risk. From a psychological perspective, desire grows in spaces where tension is held, not rushed. A man who can tolerate ambiguity signals strength. He doesn't need to lock the future down to feel secure in the present. That steadiness answers her question before she finishes asking it. And here's what almost no man realizes. Once she senses this in you, her behavior changes without explanation. She becomes warmer, more receptive, more playful. Not because you did more, but because you stopped doing what disrupted her nervous system. Men who master this stop blaming age, dating culture, or women themselves. They see the pattern. They understand that attraction is less about strategy and more about self-possession. Most men never reach this level of awareness. They keep trying harder, talking more, proving endlessly, while women quietly decide with their bodies long before their minds catch up. When you understand the question she's asking, you no longer fear it. You become the answer. Without saying a word, there is a moment most men misinterpret as rejection, when in reality, it's the final test. A woman goes quiet, her energy shifts. She delays a response or becomes less expressive. Older men often assume interest has faded and panic sets in. They try to fix something that isn't broken, and in doing so, they break it. Silence is not absence. Silence is information. From a psychological standpoint, when a woman pulls back slightly, she is giving her nervous system space to decide. She's checking whether your presence feels stable even when she's not reinforcing it. This is where the unspoken question becomes loudest. Can I step away without you chasing me? Men who rush to re-engage believe they're showing care. What they're actually showing is dependency on feedback, and dependency, even subtle, triggers emotional caution in women, not because they want to be chased, but because being responsible for a man's emotional balance feels heavy. A centered man doesn't disappear in response to distance. He also doesn't pursue it. He stays consistent. His tone doesn't change. His life doesn't pause. This consistency is profoundly regulating to a woman. It signals that connection with you adds to her life, not replaces her autonomy. Women are deeply attuned to emotional shifts. If your energy spikes when she's close and drops when she's not, she feels it immediately. That volatility makes her body tense. Attraction requires relaxation. This is why some women seem drawn back to men who did nothing after a pullback. From her perspective, he did everything right. He didn't demand, he didn't retreat in resentment, he simply remained himself. Older men who understand this stop narrating the relationship in real time. They stop asking, "Where do I stand?" and start embodying steadiness. They realize that a woman doesn't need constant reassurance, she needs emotional continuity. And here's the hard truth. If she pulls away and never returns, your chasing wouldn't have saved it. Attraction isn't fragile, it's either supported or disrupted. Respecting space doesn't push a woman away, it reveals whether there was something solid to begin with. Most men exhaust themselves trying to prevent loss instead of creating safety. Safety is quiet. It doesn't argue, it doesn't beg, it doesn't rush. When a woman senses that being close to you doesn't cost her freedom, her body leans in again naturally. No persuasion required, no performance necessary. Men who grasp this stop fearing silence. They understand it as part of the conversation, and they answer it by staying grounded. Now, let me reveal why this matters even more as men get older. Time sharpens instincts. Women become faster at sensing emotional imbalance because they've paid for it before. They've carried relationships where they had to manage a man's moods, reassure his insecurities, or stabilize his sense of worth. So when they meet you, they're not romantic first. They're scanning for emotional weight. And this is where many older men unknowingly disqualify themselves. When you talk about past relationships with bitterness, even subtly, she hears unresolved tension. When you present yourself as finally ready but speak with urgency, she feels pressure. When you position yourself as the safe choice, the reasonable choice, the mature choice, she doesn't feel chosen, she feels recruited. The question she's asking underneath all of this is simple but unforgiving. Will being close to you feel like rest or responsibility? A man who is internally settled doesn't need to convince a woman he's different. His energy answers for him. He doesn't rush intimacy to secure comfort. He lets connection unfold at a pace that feels mutual, not strategic. This calm confidence is often mistaken for aloofness by men who don't understand it, but to a woman it feels like emotional competence. This is also why some women may test boundaries without realizing it. They may disagree lightly, challenge a preference, or assert independence. They're not trying to dominate. They're checking if you respect yourself enough to respect them. A man who instantly yields to keep harmony doesn't feel safe. A man who becomes rigid doesn't feel safe either. Balance does. Psychologically, attraction forms when polarity exists without threat. You can stand your ground without hardening. You can listen without disappearing. You can want her without needing her to validate you. That combination is rare and unmistakable. Most men think attraction fades because of age, competition, or modern dating. In truth, it fades because men abandon their center the moment they care. They trade steadiness for effort, and effort, when fueled by fear, never feels good to receive. A woman doesn't need you to be flawless. She needs you to be self-contained. When she senses that your emotional world is stable with or without her, she relaxes. And when she relaxes, curiosity turns into desire. This is why the men who seem to have the least urgency often inspire the deepest interest. They're not withholding, they're whole. Once you understand this, you stop chasing attraction. You start attracting through how you hold yourself, especially when nothing is being guaranteed. There's a final misunderstanding that keeps men trapped in cycles of confusion. They believe the moment a woman shows interest, they must do more to keep it alive. More attention, more availability, more reassurance. But psychologically, attraction doesn't grow from addition, it grows from containment. When a woman feels interest, her nervous system becomes alert. Not excited, alert. She's watching whether your behavior expands uncontrollably or remains measured. Older men often flood the space with good intentions, unaware that emotional flooding feels like loss of control on the receiving end. Think of attraction like a fire. Oxygen matters, but too much suffocates it. When you respond instantly every time, rearrange your life prematurely, or escalate emotional language before intimacy has formed, you remove the tension that creates desire. She doesn't feel chosen, she feels overwhelmed. The unspoken question resurfaces here. Can you want me without losing yourself? A man who can enjoy interest without consuming it communicates emotional maturity. He doesn't pull away to manipulate, he simply continues living as a man with direction. This steadiness creates contrast. It tells her that connection with you enhances life instead of replacing it. From a clinical perspective, this is called emotional differentiation. It's the ability to stay connected without becoming fused. Women are powerfully drawn to men who can do this because it mirrors psychological safety. It means closeness won't erase individuality. This is why women often feel more intrigued when a man doesn't immediately label things, lock them down, or define the future. Not because they fear commitment, but because they want to feel chosen freely, not needed urgently. Older men sometimes think slowing down makes them seem uninterested. In reality, it makes them seem regulated. Calm pacing says, I enjoy this and I trust it doesn't need to be forced. That trust is deeply attractive. And here's the part few men accept. If slowing down causes a woman to disappear, she was never responding to you. She was responding to attention. Real attraction survives space. Attention-seeking does not. When you stop performing emotional availability and start embodying emotional stability, women respond differently. Conversations deepen. Eye contact lingers. Touch becomes more natural. Not because you escalated, but because you didn't destabilize. Men who internalize this stop trying to manage outcomes. They focus on alignment. They let interest breathe. And in doing so, they answer the question women keep asking, without pressure, without fear, without saying a word. That's when attraction stops feeling fragile and starts feeling mutual. Here is the quiet conclusion most men never reach, even after decades of dating. Women are not asking to be impressed, they're asking to feel regulated in your presence. That's the question beneath every interaction, every pause, every subtle test. And once you understand it, everything shifts. The men who struggle most are not lacking value, they are leaking energy. They monitor reactions too closely. They adjust themselves mid-conversation. They seek confirmation instead of trusting their own stability. From a psychological lens, this creates noise, and noise disrupts attraction. A woman doesn't need certainty about the future to feel desire. She needs certainty about you, about who you are when things are unclear, about how you hold yourself when there's silence, about whether your emotional core stays intact without her validation. This is why some men feel overlooked while doing everything right. They're behaving well, but not being grounded. They confuse politeness with presence. Presence is felt, not explained. When a woman senses that your sense of self doesn't rise or fall based on her responses, something deep in her relaxes. She no longer feels like she has to manage the interaction. She can explore curiosity instead of control, desire instead of evaluation. And here's the part that's difficult but freeing. You cannot fake this. Techniques fail here. Scripts fail here. The only thing that answers her question is internal alignment, a life that feels full, boundaries that feel calm, interest that feels clean, not urgent. This is why the most attractive men are often the least reactive. They don't harden when challenged. They don't overgive when appreciated. They stay consistent. Consistency creates trust. Trust creates safety. Safety creates desire. Most older men think they missed their window. They didn't. What they missed was the lesson. Attraction doesn't expire with age. It refines it. Women become less tolerant of emotional chaos and more drawn to emotional steadiness. That's an advantage if you understand it. When you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing your own center, women feel it immediately. Your words matter less. Your timing improves. Your presence carries weight. So the next time a woman asks a question, goes quiet, challenges you lightly, or pulls back just a bit, don't rush to respond. Don't perform. Don't chase. Stay where you are, grounded, whole,